Chapter 3. Narrow Escapes from Death. It seemed that Satan was determined my father would not fulfill the place to which God had appointed him. Dad once told me, I was about 6 years old, or I might have been 7, when I nearly missed death again. It was out near our schoolhouse, which stood in the woods, and all around were saplings, tall, slender saplings. We boys would climb up high in them, grab the top, and jump down. They would just swing you to the ground and let you down real easy. It was good sport. Well, one day, Daddy had left Uncle Pete to work back in the creek bottom, and my brother, another boy, and I were sent to help. While we were there, I thought I would show this other boy how we would swing from the saplings. There were some tall, young trees there, so I started up one of them. Of course, I didn't know one tree from another. I didn't realize that I was climbing up a white sycamore that wouldn't bend. I remember yet how I took hold of the top of the tree with my hands, my feet on the lower limb, and just swung out into the air. I was already looking forward to the exciting glide and easy touch to the ground some 20 feet below. But instead, when I swung out, the top of that little tree broke off, and down I came. I hit the ground hard on my neck, my head, and my back, just missing a fallen log by inches. It could have broken my back or just plain killed me. By God's grace, it only stunned me. After a few minutes, I was able to get up and walk around. Pete didn't think I was going to be worth much for work, however, and he said, Now you go to the house and ask Addie, my older sister, how soon she will have dinner ready for us. So I headed for the house. I can remember going up through the fields, then stopping about halfway and returning to the creek. What did you come back for? Pete asked. I said, Where was I going? I told you to go tell Addie to get dinner, he answered. Why didn't I know it? I replied. But Pete urged me, You go ask Addie how soon she will have dinner. So I turned and again made my way through the fields to the house. Going in, I asked Addie when she was going to have dinner. Now, this is what she told me afterwards. I knew nothing about it at the time because I didn't know what I was doing. She told me the time dinner should be ready. Then I went into the room where my other sister, Flo, was, and asked her the same question. When are we going to have dinner? And she answered me. Pretty soon I was out with Addie again, asking, When are we going to have dinner? Then I was back to Flo with the same question. It wasn't long before they recognized that I was out of my head and didn't know what I was saying. They became pretty alarmed and had me lie down fast. That was around 10 in the morning. I never came to my senses until about 4 in the afternoon. It is a miracle that my mind worked well afterward, let alone that I wasn't killed on the log at the bottom of that sycamore tree. When he was about 12 to 14, Dad had another close brush with death. For some reason, he and his brother were left alone on a Sunday afternoon, and, as boys do when they are alone, they thought they would do something exciting. They decided to go to the creek and skate. It was bitter cold, Dad relates, but George and I had on warm clothes and our half-soled felt boots. We didn't have regular ice skates, but you could slide on your boots almost as well as you could on real skates. We were having a time skidding up and down that creek on our boots. There was one sharp bend in the creek where the water had rushed fast enough to keep washing the bottom deeper and deeper. It must have been a couple feet or more over my head. I didn't think about it, but of course the ice would be thinner where the water was moving faster. As I was skating around that bend, the ice gave way under me. Before I knew it, I was clear to the bottom, underneath the ice in freezing water. Here I had on heavy winter clothing and those big felt boots. As soon as I hit the water, my clothes were soaking wet, and I weighed an awful lot more than normal. With current as swift as that was there, and as heavy as I was with all that waterlogged clothing, one would have expected me to be swept downstream. By all rights, I should have died a prisoner under the ice. But by a miracle of God, I managed to come back up right where the ice had broken. Think of that. If I would have been swept just a short distance down the stream, I never would have been able to find the hole in the ice, even if I could have fought the current. It was a marvel, I know. Somehow, George managed to get a long stick to me while I hung onto the ice. It's not easy to get out of a hole in the ice. The sides generally keep breaking away, and more often than not, someone else gets dragged into the water before the whole thing is over. But he managed to haul me out. As soon as I hit that cold air, my clothes were frozen stiff as a poker. That was a very close call with death. Upon another occasion, Dad was home alone with Uncle Pete. As Pete cleaned his .32 caliber pistol, he was snapping the hammer, unaware that a cartridge was in the cylinder. Dad happened to be walking past him when the pistol discharged with a tremendous bang. It frightened them both nearly to pieces. The bullet shot behind my dad and splintered the casing across the room. My father stated, "If it had been a little sooner, he would have shot a hole right through me." The incident was not mentioned by either of them until much later. Dad's parents never knew how close he came to death that time. The horse and buggy era was not without its own peculiar type of dangers as well. Dad told me, "I was out riding around in a rig with 2 other young men when 3 fellows in another buggy came up beside us. Ray Pond, the one driving our rig, thought he would just let our horse out to keep them from going around us. He nudged the horse and it took off. When our horse began to run faster, the other driver said, 'Oh no, Wendy,' that was Ray's nickname, 'you will never see the day that you can outrun me.' And he urged his horse into a run to pass us. About that time, our horse made a sudden jump, which startled all of us. I mean, it made a tremendous lurch. When it jumped, it tore loose the belly band, and the 2 buggy shafts flew up into the air. There we were, with our horse running madly off, and the buggy shafts flying up and then smacking down on the horse's back. The more they slammed, the harder it galloped. Now, unless you have been in one of those frail little rigs with the horse running out of control, you can't imagine what it was like. That horse wasn't just running a race. He was madly out of control and running berserk. If we had hit a rough road or come to a sharp turn, we wouldn't have had a chance. Getting thrown from an open rig at that speed would have meant permanent, crippling injury or death, one or the other. It was only a miracle that we got him stopped. We all could have been killed. Death continued to stalk my father on the 4th of July, just before he started courting my mother. At the age of 18, he was helping extract pipe from abandoned oil wells. A block and tackle was being used to exert the force necessary to pull the pipe from the ground. In order to begin the process of extracting the pipe from one of the oil derricks, Dad was on the platform helping to pull the huge pulley block into the top of the derrick and fix it securely. This large block weighed over 200 pounds. Connected by ropes to this was a second pulley block weighing some 150 pounds in itself. As this apparatus was being hoisted to the top by a big horse team, it became entangled or lodged in some manner that was unsatisfactory. The boss yelled, "Grab that bottom block, Eldon, to keep her from going up too far." When my dad grabbed that lower pulley block as it started up past him, it simply lifted him right off the platform, leaving him several feet in the air, his feet dangling. Just at that moment, high in the top of the derrick, the rope supporting Dad and the pulley blocks suddenly broke. Dad fell to the oil-soaked platform below, with a 200-pound weight hurtling from the top of the derrick onto his head. By a miracle of Jesus, when his feet hit the oily platform, he skidded sideways just a little. That huge block came crashing into the wood less than 2 inches from his body, nearly grazing his head. Just a little closer, and that heavy block would have crushed him. Once again, God had spared my father.